from your textbook entitled Hafiz Mirza. I repeat the chapter Hafiz Mirza. That is chapter 11 from your textbook. So I will be starting with the chapter Hafiz Mirza, written by Hafiz Mirza. Hafiz Mirza, written by a famous author, Hafiz Mirza. So dear children, just for your knowledge, this man, Hafiz Mirza, was born in Dhaka, that is present-day capital of Bangladesh. This man was the greatest painter, a tutor, and obviously he was one of the greatest writers of his time. In fact, this man, Hafiz Mirza, he was the first person to introduce modernism in Indian art. Modernism means some modern elements in Indian art. Therefore, he became one of the renowned personalities, one of the renowned figures of his time. Nevertheless, he died in the year 2008 in Kolkata. So children, this is a small short intro on the very author Hafiz Mirza. So before moving ahead with the story, I would like to ask you all one question. How does a person become an artist? Or how does a person become a skilled or a talented or an expert individual? To make it more simple, for example, a baker bakes bread, and an electrician, he maintains and fixes the electrical wires, and a plumber, as you all know, is someone who does plumbing. So children, could you consider the baker, the electrician, and the plumber as an artist? Yes, you all are correct. These people, they can be considered as an artist. Why? Because these people, they are specialized in their own respective fields. They are good and talented at their own individual genre, individual form. So these people, they become skilled, they become talented, they become an artist. Some by birth, or some become talented after years of hard work in their particular field. So likewise children, today we are going to learn about an interesting character in the story. And the name of the character is, as you see here, Hafiz Mirza. So today we will learn about a man named Hafiz Mirza. Hafiz is the name of a person, a name generally of a man, and Mirza is a Muslim title generally used to address an old or some respected people in a village. So Hafiz Mirza is the name of the main character of the story, and the author Hafiz Mirza, he narrates. He is the narrator of the story. Hafiz Mirza, he is the narrator of the story, and he narrates about the incident related to this man Hafiz Mirza, and he makes the readers admire the craftsmanship of this man Hafiz Mirza. Children, this man Hafiz Mirza was an artist, was a very talented person, but neither he was a baker, neither or electrician nor a plumber. This man Hafiz Mirza was a tailor by profession. Tailor, as you all know, is someone who stitches cloth. So Hafiz Mirza was a tailor who used to stitch cloth, and he was an extraordinary tailor because amazingly, surprisingly, this man Hafiz Mirza, he was so much talented in his field of tailoring and stitching the cloths that he could stitch a cloth for someone actually without taking the measurement. Just imagine for a while, children, is it possible for a tailor to stitch a cloth without taking a measurement? Yes, it's next to impossible. A tailor cannot stitch a cloth without the measurement. But this man, Hafiz Mirza, had an extraordinary skill, had an exceptional talent of stitching clothes without taking the measurements. This man would simply look at the person and he could figure out the very measurement, and he actually literally did not use his measuring tape to take the measurements. So that was the extraordinary quality Hafiz Mirza had. So this, children, is a very, very simple story, yet an interesting one, an interesting piece. So children, let us all together turn to page number 91. I repeat, page number 91 of your textbook. I will tell you all the story in detail. So the story goes like this. One day, the narrator, just look at this picture. You see a person standing on the balcony of the house. Look at the first picture. You see a man standing on the balcony of the house. So one day, the narrator, Parito said, he was standing on the balcony of his house to be accessible with the fresh air and the view. So when the narrator was standing on the balcony, he saw a car, he saw a Ford stop right in front of Hafiz Mirza's shop. And the narrator says that in those days, cars were not a very common sight. Cars could be hardly seen in the lanes and the roads because only the rich and the affluent people, they possessed, they acquired cars and vehicles. So all of a sudden, one day the narrator happens to witness a car stop right in front of Hafiz Mirza's shop. And the narrator became so interested to know about the passenger who was seated inside the car. Then what about Hafiz Mirza? As soon as Hafiz Mirza saw the car stop in front of his shop, he stood on his feet and he greeted the passenger respectfully. And who was the passenger? The passenger was none other than a Nawab Jada, a Nawab. As you all know, a Nawab means a rich Muslim ruler, an affluent landowner, someone who is very rich in Muslim community. They are given the title of Nawab Jada. So just imagine Hafiz Mirza has greeted the Nawab Jada right now. Because the Nawab Jada was a rich, a very, very affluent man. Now has come to visit Hafiz Mirza. So look at this picture. You see a man here. He is the Nawab Jada. Nawab Jada, as I told you, a rich person, a very affluent man. So here you find the man comes here. He is the Nawab Jada here. As you see in the picture, the Nawab Jada was wearing a long ghee-colored coat, and you call that coat an achkan. He was wearing a ghee-colored long coat, and he was wearing a red hat on his head. So the Nawab Jada was basically very rich, and he was also dressed in a very extravagant and in a very attractive way. And he had put a red cap on his head and a long coat. And he had something on his hand. Just look at this picture. The Nawab Jada was carrying a woolen fabric in his hand. He came with a woolen cloth in his hand. So why had the Nawab Jada come with a woolen fabric in his hand? Certainly, Parithosen, he tells us something about the man, about the tailor Hafiz Mirza. What exactly Hafiz Mirza was going through on that day? Parithosen says that on that very day, this tailor Hafiz Mirza was having a stomach ailment, was having a stomach pain. To add on to his problem of stomach pain, on that very day, he had a verbal fight with a man named Kallu. So as he was having a stomach pain, and on top of that, he had a verbal fight with a man named Kallu, he was basically in a foul mood. He was basically in a very bad mood. But still, he answered in a very polite way. He answered politely to the Nawab Jada, and he said that you can leave your cloth over here and you may come after 3 days for the trial. So Hafiz Mirza asked the Nawab Jada to come after 3 days for the trial, but he did not take the measurement. Surprisingly, he did not take the measurement of the Nawab Jada, but instead he asked him to come after 3 days for the trial. And the Nawab Jada's reaction was beyond our thinking. The Nawab Jada's cap almost fell in astonishment because he thought, how can a tailor ask you to come after 3 days to get your cloth, to get your coat without any measurement? The measurement was not taken. But still, the Nawab Jada, without talking much, without interfering much, he got into his car and drove off. Then that's how the Nawab Jada leaves his cloth behind and he drove off to his house. Now the narrator became all the more inquisitive. The narrator became more, interested, very much curious to know what exactly Hafiz Mirza was going to do next, because he had not taken the measurement. That too, Nawab Jada was not an ordinary person, he was a rich man. So what Hafiz Mirza was going to do with his cloth? The narrator, he narrates further and says that the next day, look at this picture, children. The narrator finds Hafiz Mirza seated on a floor, and he had placed the woolen fabric right in front of him. Just have a look at the picture once. You'll find Hafiz Mirza with his measuring tape and his tailoring equipments, and the piece of woolen fabric is placed right in front of him. And the narrator could see Hafiz Mirza closing his eyes again and again as if he was trying to visualize the figure of the Nawab Jada. Hafiz Mirza was visualizing the very figure of the Nawab Jada, and he was cutting the cloths. Then very interestingly, the narrator says that I was panic stricken. I was so much scared. All sorts of ominous, all sorts of unpleasant thoughts filled my mind. What if Hafiz Mirza failed to stitch perfect coat for the Nawab Jada? What if Hafiz Mirza did not stitch properly? So the narrator became very much excited, anxious, and he became panic stricken. Now the main incident is yet to come, yet to happen. So, as the Nawab Jada was asked to come after 3 days, he exactly does so. Right after 3 days, a car came up exactly in the due time, that is right after 3 days. And the narrator says that I was almost bursting with excitement. He was so excited. What is going to happen between Hafiz Mirza Yes, the Nawab Jada is his client. So Hafiz Mia greeted his client in a very respected way, and he went inside to retrieve the coat, to get the coat for the Nawab Jada. And Hafiz Mia, in fact, did not seem worried at all. He was very calm and composed. He did not have a single sign of anxiety on his face. Whereas, on the contrary, the Nawab Jada looked a little bit anxious, and the Nawab Jada looked a little bit apprehensive, and he was frowning as how has the tailor made his coat. Then, surprisingly, what happens towards the end? Now finally, you look at the final picture over here. You will find that Hafiz Mia made the Nawab Jada stand in front of the mirror. Hafiz Mia made the Nawab Jada stand in front of the mirror, and he says, "Wonder of wonders, it was a near perfect fit. The coat was absolutely perfect. The sleeves, the shoulders, the armpit, everything was perfect." Look at this picture. The narrator is just anxious and he is witnessing the incident. And we find Hafiz Mia standing at the back, and Nawab Jada is made to stand in front of the mirror. And you see here Nawab Jada's smiling face because the coat was a perfect fit for him. Look at this. Nawab Jada has worn a blue coat, and that is totally and absolutely a perfect one without no flaws at all. So finally, what happens? The Nawab Jada, after taking his coat, he proceeded to the car, and just before he left, he turned back and he smiled and said, his lips mumbled, and he said, "Kamal, Kamal, Gazab, Gazab." That means he appreciated Hafiz Mia's talent. So much so he said, "Kamal, Kamal, Gazab, Gazab." That means he really adored Hafiz Mia's craftsmanship. So dear children, this is how the story ends. How Hafiz Mia is being visited by a Nawab Jada, and Hafiz Mia teaches a coat for this man, Nawab Jada, without taking any measurement. But towards the end, to the Nawab Jada's as well as the narrator's surprise, Hafiz Mia teaches a perfect coat for the Nawab Jada. And the Nawab towards the end is full of praise for the tailor Hafiz Mia. So children, this is in fact the story in detail. The story of Hafiz Mia, where the author Hafiz Sen talks about the extraordinary talent of Hafiz Mia, who could stitch the cloths without taking any measurement. Here also, he stitched Nawab Jada's coat without taking any measurement as such. So this is the end of the story, Hafiz Mia, written by Hafiz Sen. So children, the assignments related to this chapter will be forwarded to you all in your class WhatsApp group. If you have any further